Hi, welcome to iEducator. This is Teacher Jeff. I'm an educator and an engineer by profession. And today we will discuss how to write Chapter 1, the problem and a review of related literature. Now, in today's topic, there are four parts that we're going to be discussing today. Part one of our lesson that would be the three main schools of style. Part two, that would be the general format or APA 7th edition guidelines. Part three, that would be the detailed format for preliminary parts. And finally, that would be the detailed format for chapter one, the problem and a review of related literature. Now, part one of our lesson or discussion includes APA or American Psychological Association style. We also have the MLA or Modern Language Association style. And finally, we have the CMS or Chicago Manual of Styles. And part two of our lesson for today, that would be the general format. Now, in today's semester, in your thesis, since our school is adapting the APA format, and so for that matter, we will be abiding to the APA 7th edition guidelines. Since this 7th edition was just recently released, it was released that was October of last year. That's 2020. And the general format under APA 7th edition guidelines includes paper size, margins, typeface or type font, line spacing. We also have general alignment, paragraph indention, page numbering, and number of spaces after a period. And for the third part of our lesson, it would be the detailed format for preliminary parts. And this includes the following. First, we have the title page. Second, we have approval sheet. Third, we have acknowledgement sheet. Fourth, we have abstract. Fifth, we have contents. Formerly, it was called table of contents, but in today's guideline, the 7th edition guidelines, it is now called contents. And also we have list of tables and list of figures as well. And the last part of our discussion, that would be the detailed format for chapter 1, the problem and a review of related literature, which includes the introduction or the rationale of the study. We also have the review of related literature, which includes RR or related readings, RL or related literature, and RS for related studies. It also includes, aside from that, we have synthesis and justification and theoretical framework, which is under theoretical background. And also we have conceptual framework, how to create statement of the problem. Take note, the statement of the problem is divided into two parts. We have the general statement of the problem, and we also have the specific statements of the problem. And we also have the hypothesis, significance of the study, scope and limitation, and definition of terms. Now, in order for us to get started, let us go ahead and discuss part one of our lesson, and that would be the three main schools of styles. Now, take note that in academic writing, how you present your information technically is often seen as important as the ideas you are putting forth, okay? Now, proper citing, coding, and referencing of source material allows you to convey your breadth of research in a language commonly shared by others in your discipline. Now, giving others a chance to review and compare your work under these established guidelines enables your instructors to better see the work on its own merits, opposed to getting sidetracked by technical inefficiencies. And so for that matter, you must follow the rules like every other student. This is not an area where you want to stand out for doing things your own way. Writing for any academic purpose carries with it certain expectations and formatting consistencies, and a failure to properly understand how or why you cite your sources in a specific way can have negative effects on your written projects and communications. And so, for that matter, there are three big main schools of styles used to properly format an academic paper. First, we have the APA. Second, we have the MLA. And finally, we have the CMS. Now, in order for us to better understand each one of them, let us discuss them one by one, starting with the APA format. Now, APA stands for American Psychological Association, and these are the official guidelines put forth by the American Psychological Association, now in its seventh edition. This is the preference of the social sciences. So if you are studying sociology, psychology, medicine, or social work, you're going to know APA style. On the other hand, for MLA or Modern Language Association, the Modern Language Association provides guidelines you will be familiar with if you are focused on the humanities. So artists, English majors, and theater students will know MLA as they have used this style now for more than half a century. And finally, we have the CMS style or the Chicago Manual of Styles. These are the style guidelines put forth in the Chicago Manual of Styles, now in its 16th edition. Now, CMS style is predominantly seen in the humanities, particularly with literature students and those who study advanced segments of history and or the arts. Now, while these formatting methods, these three formatting methods will share many characteristics such as margins and spacing, how they attribute references to source materials is the main differentiator. For example, APA lists references, okay? So in APA, you call it references, but in MLA, they call it work cited. Okay, so that's a small but important distinction that might actually affect your grade. Now, typically, you are going to use one style for most of your classes and communications, but there is certainly the possibility that you'll need to know how to use any one of these three common styles. Now, the goodness is, it is not hard to get up to speed on any one of them and use them properly. All right. So this ends our discussion on our first key area, which is the three big main schools of styles. Now, moving on to our second key area of our lesson, that would be the general format. So in this case, since our school is adopting the APA format, and so for that matter, we will be strictly abiding the guidelines under APA 7th edition. And the guidelines under APA 7th edition for a general format includes the paper size, and also the paper size should be letter size, meaning it should be a short bond paper, okay? So that should be 8.5 inches by 11 inches. And for the margins, it should be 1 inch in all sides, including top, bottom, left, and right, according to section 2.22, page 45 of the APA 7th edition guidelines. But in this case, as your instructor, I will not let you use 1 inch in all sides, okay? Because take note that we will be binding your paper. It's either a soft bound or a hard bound. And so for that matter, the sides that should be 1 inch should only be the top, the bottom, and the right. But on the left side, I would require you to have it 1.5 inches, okay? If that is clear. And also, the typeface or the text font rather. Now, for the typeface or text font, Take note that most instructors prefer the font set at 12-point Times New Roman, okay? However, APA does allow for other font types and sizes already, especially for today's edition, 7th edition. For the font sizes and font styles, it includes Calibri 11-point, Arial 11-point, Lucida Sans Unicode 10-point, or Georgia 11-point. Now, you need to consult your instructor for their preferences. So this is under section 2.19, page 44. And also we have line spacing. Take note for the line spacing, it should be double spacing. Should occur throughout the entire document, including the title page, the reference list, and quotations of 40 or more words. And take note that there are few exceptions. So this is under section 2.21, page 45, all right? For the general alignment, of course, it should be justified. And for the paragraph indentation, the paragraph should be indented half an inch, meaning for consistency throughout the paper, click your tab key one time, okay? So that is for paragraph indentation, only one click of the tab key. So that is under section 2.24, pages 45 to 46. And for the page numbering, take note that page numbers should be located in the right upper corner of the header unless specified differently from your instructor. But as your instructor, I will not be specifying any other locations. We will stick to this guideline. So we will locate your page number at the right corner or at the upper right portion of your paper. This is under section 2.18, page 44. And finally, for the number of spaces after a period, take note that APA style recommends placing one space after a period that ends a sentence. So for every sentence that ends, you need to put one space and then you can start another sentence. And also, aside from that, you need to place one space after a period when the period separates parts of a reference entry and after author's name abbreviation. For example, you have Lander, okay, that's the last name or the surname of the author, comma, the initials, you have F, dot, and take note there's a space after that, okay? So F dot space and then K dot. Okay, now when can we not put a space after a period? Do not put a space after a period for internal abbreviations. For example, US. So that's an abbreviation of United States. So we cannot put a space after a period. For example, PM. Okay, so we cannot put a space after the period as well. All right, so that ends our discussion for our second key area. So the next key area that we're going to be discussing right now, that would be the detailed format for preliminary parts. And let us start by discussing the title page. Now, take note that there is a huge difference on the APA 6th edition guideline and this current guideline, which is the 7th edition. So your title page would look differently. So your title page elements for the 7th edition guideline includes the page number, the page title, the name of the author, the affiliation of the author, the course, the instructor, and the due date as well. Now, let us have an example of how a title page would look like in an APA 7th edition format. Now, as you can see there, it says, it includes page numbers. So as you can see, we have there page number. So that's number 1, and it's located at the upper right portion of your paper. And aside from page number, you also have page title. As you can see on our example, you have there page title, okay, or the title of the paper, or the title of your thesis study. So in this case, the title of our thesis study, that's art pre-industrial versus post-industrial revolution, an exploration of genres. So you have there a subtitle, but take note, subtitles are just optional. All right. So aside from page number and page title, you can also see in the title page the name of the author and the author affiliation as well. Now, as you can see, in this case, the name of our author is Jane Doe. So what's the affiliation of Jane Doe? Affiliation refers to the department and the university you are currently studying to. So in this case, you have Department of English Studies and University of Delaware. Okay, that is Jane Doe's affiliation. And aside from that, it also includes the course of the researcher or the author, the name of the instructor or professor, and the due date as well. Now, in this case, our course is English 101. The name of the instructor is Professor Angela Brown, but you need to consult your instructors first, okay? Because they might want you to have their name entered differently. Because there are some instructors who do not prefer to be called professor. They wanted to have it typed in your manuscript as attorney or doctor or engineer and whatsoever. Okay, so you need to consult first your instructors, especially your thesis advisors. And also it includes finally the due date. So in this case, we have January 1st, 2020. So a little tip. So in your title page, take note that all elements should be center aligned and double spaced. It should include page number, title and subtitle in bold. As you can see in our title, it's written in bold, okay? And you also have title followed by semicolon if a subtitle is used, all right? And next we have title itself. Now, if we say title, it should summarize the main idea in a succinct way. It also includes strong keywords. What I mean by keywords is that I'm referring to your variables of your study, the dependent and independent variables. Now, what's the use of these keywords though? Now, these keywords would allow the readers to find your work in a database or by using a search engine. And also, as much as possible, avoid using abbreviations in a title. That is a big no-no. So no abbreviation. And also, the title should be provided in title case, which means to say that all major words are the only ones that are capitalized, because in the previous editions of APA, as you can notice, all of the title or all the words in the title are all caps or capitalized, but in this case, it should be title case, all right? So also, it should be bolded, okay, centered, and begin 3 to 4 lines down from the top margin of the paper. And put a double space blank line between the title and the byline. And finally, the paper title also appears at the top of the first page of your paper. Now, let us have an example and let's try to assess whether these guidelines are true and correct and are followed, okay? So as you can see in our sample format, so this is the same format I presented earlier. Now, first, you have there include strong keywords. Now, in this particular example, we have art, pre-industrial versus post-industrial revolution, an exploration of genre. So if I have to assess the title, so the keywords here are art pre-industrial or pre-industrial, and you also have post-industrial revolution. So when a certain student or when a certain researcher would go ahead and make use of a Google search, and if I will be searching a post-industrial keyword, then I will be able to see your study as well. Okay, so meaning to say, your keywords would allow your readers to find your work in a database, especially if they are making use of a search engine. And also, let's try to assess whether this title uses abbreviation. So as far as you can notice, there's no abbreviation at all, which is good. And also, the title should be provided in title case. Now, as you can notice as well, in our sample title, it's not written in all caps, right? It's not all capitalized, meaning to say it's just in title case. Title case means that all major words are capitalized. So as you can notice, you have their art. So the first letter of the word art is capitalized. You also have pre for pre-industrial, and you also have letter P for post-industrial, and you also have R for revolution. Okay, so which is good. It follows the guideline. And also, it should be bolded and centered. So as you can notice, it's bold and it's centered as well. And 3 to 4 lines down from the top margin of the paper. So as you can notice, you have there hit return 3 to 4 times. Okay, so meaning it follows the guideline. Okay, so you also have put a double space blank line between the title and the byline. So obviously you have there a double space between your title and the byline as well. And finally, the title or the paper title also appears at the top of the first page of your paper. Now, as you can notice, you can see there the page number right aligned half an inch down, located at the upper right corner of your title page. All right, so that's how you make or you create a title page under APA 7th edition guidelines. All right. Aside from title, we also have author's name or byline. Now, under author's name or byline, beneath the title, you need to type the author's or author's full names, okay? And also, do not use titles or degrees. So, assuming that you are a researcher and you have graduated already doctor's degree, and you are already called doctor, let's say Dr. Jane Doe, or Engineer Jane Doe, or Attorney Jane Doe. So in your research study, especially in your title page, you cannot make use of your title or degree. It's just plainly your first name, your initials, and your last name or surname, okay? And supposing you are not the only author of your research study or thesis study, so you have group members. So for multiple authors, how do you order your names then? Well, the ordering of the names of the authors will be based on their contribution. So for example, there are 3 of us in our research study or thesis, okay? Now, I have contributed 70% of our thesis. So meaning to say, I will be writing down my name first, and then followed by my group member who contributed like 20%, okay? And then lasted by another group member who contributed only 10%, okay? That will be how you order your names on your title page. And also, your name should be written on the same line, just one line, okay? Center the names in a standard font, and you need to use the word and, the full and, instead of the symbol and. For example, you have there Smith and Doe, okay? So you make use the word and. So if there are 3 authors, Smith, Doe, and Jones, okay? So you make use the word and, not the symbol and. So what about an example? So this is an example of the name of the author. So in this case, there's only one author by the name of Jane Doe. And for multiple authors, as you can notice, okay, there, boxed in yellow, these are the authors of our thesis. So you have there Kelly M. Lister Landman, comma, Sarah E. Damoff, comma, space, and Eric F. Dubbo. Okay, so meaning to say, in this case, we assume that Kelly M. Lister Landman is the one who had made bigger contributions for this particular study because her name appeared first on the author's list, okay, or on the author's names ordering. All right, so that's how you actually write or enter your names as authors of your thesis. It should be from the one with the biggest contribution to the least contribution. And also, as you can notice, it is centered as well, right? Okay. Next, we have, what about for author affiliations? For author affiliations, you need to identify where you worked or studied when the body of work was completed. So you need to specify the name of the department and the name of the college or the name of the university you were studying when the body of work was completed. Also, it includes no more than 2 affiliations for each author. For academic affiliations, you need to include the name of the department and the name of the institution separated by a comma. So in this case, for example, you have there College of Nursing and Health Innovation, University of Texas at Arlington. Or maybe you could also have College of Engineering, University of the Philippines. Okay, so you can actually do that. As you can see in our example, so that is an example of an affiliation, okay, boxed in yellow. So the affiliation for this particular author is Department of English Studies, University of Delaware. All right. So what about for non-academic affiliation? So what do you write in your manuscript? So for non-academic affiliations, instead of writing the name of the department and the name of the school or institution, so since it's non-academic, what you need to write is include the department or division, include the name of the institution, include the location of the institution separate by comma. For example, Hematology Oncology, Cook Children Medical Center, Fort Worth, Texas, United States. Okay, so that's for non-academic affiliations. And for no institutional affiliation, well, you need to include the location. And take note, location should include the city, state, province, and the country as well. And apart from that, you also have the course name. For the course name, you need to put the course number and name below the author affiliation. So for example, Res 101, okay? So Res 101 Methods of Research, or IE 55 Project Design. So you need to include and specify the course name. And for your instructor, it also includes your instructor's name below the course name. So check with your instructor on the preferred name, like I said earlier. And also, finally, we have the due date. So for the due date, you need to place the month, the date, and the year after the instructor's name. All right. And as you can see, boxed in yellow, these are examples of the course. So in this case, we have English 101. The name of the instructor is Professor Angela Brown, and the due date is 1st of January 2020. All right. And also, aside from title, we also have approval page. Now, what is meant by approval page? Now, approval page is placed immediately after the title page, and it contains statements of recommendation. For the formatting, for the line spacing, it should be single space. I have mentioned earlier that we should be using, okay? We should be using double spacing all throughout your study, but it was stated there that there are exceptions to the rule. Now, for the approval sheet, it should be single space only, okay? So no strict number or spaces between parts, and it should allow adequate space for signatures. And for the font style, of course, it should be bold, especially for headings and proper nouns, including title of research and names of individuals. And for the text case, all caps for headings, the research title, the degree, the names of individuals, and the point of emphasis. And take note, for undergraduate and graduate thesis, approval sheet should be duly signed by the panel of examiners, the program research coordinator, the campus research coordinator, and the dean as well. All right. And for the acknowledgement sheet, this reflects the researcher's expression of gratitude and appreciation for the assistance and encouragement extended by significant people or institution in the making of the research proposal. Now, in making your acknowledgement sheet, make sure that when you acknowledge, you should observe hierarchy of the position in acknowledging the persons involved. And pronouns must be in the third person. You need to take note of that. And when I say third person, what I mean about that is that the third person pronouns include he, him, his, himself, she, her, hers, herself, it, its, itself, they, them, their, theirs, and themselves. So these are examples of third person pronouns. And going back to the hierarchy of position, so if you acknowledge someone, so of course, it is expected in your study that there will be, let's say, 5 or maybe more or less 5 people or individuals or institutions who would be significant of your study, okay? Now, in acknowledgement somebody, you should observe hierarchy. So if that person is a doctor, so you should put their doctor blah, 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 okay? So attorney blah, 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 and then engineer blah, 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 okay? So if he or she doesn't have any title, then expected that he or she should appear at the last part of your acknowledgement, all right? And next, we have the formatting of the acknowledgement sheet. How do we format it? So for line spacing, of course, it should be double spacing. For the font style, it should be bold, maybe done to highlight names of individuals or institutions. And for the text case, all caps and centered. All right, and next we have abstract. For the abstract, take note that this serves as the summary of the whole thesis, meaning to say, you cannot make your abstract as of yet once you are not done making the whole thesis yet, okay? This can only be made once you are done with your whole thesis. It shows all the important elements of your research study in a highly condensed form. Now, what is the formatting of your abstract? Abstract should appear on their own page after the title page or page number 2. But in this case, we will not be following this one because right after our title page, we have a different element that should be appearing right after our title page. So also write the second label abstract in bold, okay? So it should be in bold title case, centered at the top of the page, and place the abstract below the label. And take note that abstracts are typically limited to no more than 250 words only, okay? And abstracts may appear in paragraph or structured format. So both are written as a single paragraph without indentation, okay? So it should only be a single paragraph. Why single paragraph? Because this is just a summary of your thesis. If you're using structured format, labels are inserted to identify various sections such as objective, method, results, conclusion. Again, in your abstract, in making your abstract, you can see there the objective, the method, okay, that was employed in your study, the result of your study, and your conclusion as well. Okay, remember, this is a summary of your whole study. And also, it should include keywords one line below the abstract if requested. So write the label keywords in italics, okay? So it should be italicized, indented 0.5 inch like a regular paragraph, followed by the keywords in lowercase, capitalize proper nouns, okay? Separated by commas. And second line, if needed, is not indented. Okay, so as you can notice, this is an example of an abstract, okay? So based on our guidelines, so this is how we create our abstract. And take note, your abstract should only be limited to 250 words. And it should only be one paragraph only. And it should contain objective, the method you employed in your study, the result of your study, and the conclusion as well. All right. And next, we have contents. Again, formerly, it was called table of contents, but as of now, it is now called contents alone, okay? Under APA 7th edition guidelines. So instead of table of contents, it's now contents. So what is contents then? Content is an ordered and paginated listing of all parts of the proposal, including the title page and the preliminary pages. Now, how do we format our contents? For the line spacing, of course, it should be double spacing. The font style should be Times New Roman. If your instructor prefers to have your manuscript to be done in 12-point Times New Roman, and at the top of the page, you should need to write contents, okay, centered and in bold. So in APA style, you can use up to 5 levels of heading, and each with its own formatting style. And in the table of contents, you should include all level 1 and 2 headings, left aligned and formatted as plain text. And level 2 headings are indented. So in order for us to better understand this, let me show you an example of contents. Okay, as you can see in our example, you have there the word contents, bold and in centered. Okay, that's the heading. And right to that is the page number. You have there page number 3, located at the upper right portion of your manuscript. And in your title, okay, at the left side, you have there the contents. At the right side, you have there the page numbers, okay? Now, in the left side, as you can notice, you have there level 1 heading. And take note that it should be bold, okay? So level 1 heading. For the level 2 heading, it's indented, okay? And for the level 3 heading, it's also indented. And like I said earlier, you can use up to 5 levels of heading. Now, before moving on to the next element, you need to take note, class, that the reason that you don't find information on creating a table of contents in the public manual or in the publication manual of the American Psychological Association 2020 is because the primary audience for the manual are authors of journal articles, and journal articles don't contain tables of content. So please check with your instructor or academic supervisor to find out what the expectations are for your table of contents. And then you can use the automatic table of content function in Word to create the list from the headings in your document, okay? So right after table of contents, we have the list of tables. And take note that the list of tables concisely presents information, often in numbers, in rows and columns. A figure is any other image or illustration you include in your text, anything from a bar chart to a photograph. Now, how do we format our list of tables then? Now, in formatting your list of tables, so table number should be in bold above the table. There should be a brief title in italics and title case below the table number. No vertical lines, horizontal lines only where necessary for clarity, okay? And clear, concise labels for columns and row headings. Numbers consistently formatted, such as with the same number of decimal places, and any relevant notes below the table. In order for us to better understand how the list of table would look like, let me show you an example. So as you can see in our sample list of table, okay, or a sample table rather, so you can see there that table number in bold above the title, okay? So in this case, you have table number 1. And right below your table number, you can see there your table title, okay? Like I said earlier, your table title should be brief and it should be in italics and title case, okay? So below the table number is where you can find your table title. And as you can see in your sample table, you cannot see any vertical lines, correct? You can only see horizontal lines there, okay? So all horizontal lines for clarity purposes. And as you can notice, there is a clear, concise labels for columns and row headings as well. So in this case, you have column heads, okay? You have girls, boys, and you also have the table body, you have the numeric values, okay? And also you have there the table notes. Note adapted from example book by J. Smith 2016, page 115, copyright 2016 by Scriber. Okay, that's an example of a note or table note. All right, so that's how a table should look like in your thesis. And next, we also have list of figures. Now, for the list of figures, it is any image used within your text are called figures. So figures include data visualization graphics such as graphs, diagrams, flow charts, as well as things like photographs or artworks. So photographs and artworks are considered as figures. So how do we format figures? Okay, in formatting your list of figures, figure number in bold above the figure. Same with tables, there should be a brief title in italics and title case under the figure number, okay? If necessary, there should be a clear label and legends integrated into the image, okay, for clarity purposes, and any relevant notes below the figure as well. Now, in order for us to better understand how a figure would look like, okay, this is an example of a figure. So in this case, you have there figure number 1. And below your figure number is your figure title. Like I said earlier, it should be brief and in italics title case, okay? And you also have the figure there, all right? The legends, you have boys, okay? And you have girls and the figure note as well. So that's how you do figures. So that's how you format list of figures. All right, so that ends our discussion for the third key area. And finally, let us now move on to the last key area of our lesson for today. That would be chapter 1, the problem and a review of related literature. Now, as you can see, this is a sample format of an APA, okay? So as you can notice, you have there the preliminary parts. We have title page, approval sheet, dedication, acknowledgement, abstract, contents, list of tables, and list of figures as well. And right after the preliminary parts, that would be your chapter, different chapters, okay? So for chapter 1, that would be the problem and review of related literature, wherein this will be the next key area that we will be discussing later on. So your chapter 1 includes the introduction or the rationale of your study. Also, we have review of related literature. Under that are related readings, related literature, related studies, synthesis, and justifications. We also have theoretical framework. Don't you worry, because I will be presenting as well how a theoretical background or theoretical framework can be developed. And also we have conceptual framework. And I will be showing you later on as well how to create statement of the problem, especially general and specific, hypothesis, significance of the study, scope and limitation, and definition of terms. And for chapter 2, this is your method. So it includes methodology, your research design, your research setting, respondents of the study, data gathering procedures, data gathering instruments, and statistical treatment. For chapter 3, that's going to be your presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. And for chapter 4, that's going to be your summary, conclusion, and recommendation, which includes the summary of findings, conclusion, and recommendation. All right. In order for us to get started, let us discuss now the introduction or the rationale. So take note that the rationale of the study explains the reason for a study and the importance of its findings for a particular field. Now, commonly, you'll need to write a rationale of the study as part of a university course of study, although you may also need to write one as a professional researcher to apply for funding or other support. Now, since you are still a student, so as a student, your rationale of the study also justifies how it fulfills the requirements for your degree program or course of your study. Now, do research before you write your rationale of the study so that you can discuss the previous work study builds on and explain its significance to your field. Now, thorough research is also important in the professional context because your rationale will likely become part of the contract if funding or support is approved. And so for that matter, how should we write the introduction then, or the rationale of the study? Well, we need to follow these simple steps. Now, how to write the introduction or the rationale? First, we need to describe what you hope to accomplish. Second, we need to explain your study significance. And finally, we need to include academic proposal. Now, in describing what you hope to accomplish, this should include defining the problem that your study will address, discuss the methodology for your study, predict the result of your study, and explain what you hope your study will accomplish. After having described what you hope to accomplish, it is then time for you to explain your study significance. So what do we normally do if we explain our study significance? First, we need to discuss the previous work that your study will build on. You need to describe the shortcomings of those previous works. And then you need to identify the ways your study will correct those shortcomings. And after having explained your study significance, finally, you are now able to include academic proposal information. And in doing that, you need to provide your credentials or experience as a student or researcher. You also need to state any guidelines required by your degree program or field. And you also need to list the credits you intend your study it will fulfill.